this is what I do. I get up to the awkward beginning where, oh my god, I just hit the start button. I have no idea what we're supposed to talk about.
And after how many drinks now?
2 Shirley Temples
and some urine.
Oh.
He's the much bigger guy.
Actually, well, for this, but how tall are you? You like?
I'm 6'4".
6'4".
194. How tall are you? You're about the same.
I'm about 6'1".
Okay.
6'1", but you know, it's funny for some reason because you know how like people on television or like in the movies, they always look big and cool, but then when you see them in real life, they're all midgets.
Yes.
All the Tom Cruises and stuff. So I had this idea that all YouTubers are somehow midgets, and I'm just not realizing. I always just presume I'm going to meet someone short. And everyone I mean is like tall, except for Busan Kevin. He's actually very short. He's
tiny. He's tiny.
Except for Busan Kevin, everyone is like 6 foot or taller. It's 6'4". So yeah.
No, I have to say now. Now I've been watching your videos for years, and while I was waiting for you at the hotel, as soon as you walked in, I was like, there you are.
Yeah. Here I am. I'm like, dude, let's go. I mean, and this is we're talking about this for a time. It's a cool thing about YouTube that I've never met this man before in my life, but it's like, hey,
you know each other. You have the relationship, even though you've never met someone before.
You know the type of person, you know the interaction, and we've had interactions as well. And it's honestly, and I have this with people sometimes that we don't realize I don't realize till halfway through the night sometimes. That person's. I'm thinking I've met the person at another gathering or something before. I'm not even realizing it's a first time meeting.
Absolutely.
And it's cool. And there's always a disconnect when it's someone who's encountering that for the first time when they meet someone from YouTube, and sometimes they have to be like, "Oh, you're real." But you know, for people who have done it a few times, and once you get past that, it's kind of cool. It's literally like you're meeting someone for the first time, but you're not. You know, you're meeting a friend, and this is just from the very get-go. It's like hanging out with a friend tonight, which is what it is.
It's been fantastic and something I've been looking forward to all week long.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a shame that it's the end of the night. You have to go back and work, which sucks. And then you have to fly back to Tokyo.
I have to fly back to Tokyo tomorrow. But short trip. But remembering work again. But it means I will have to come back because of some things this time. So and I thought I've been trying to come here for a year now. And hopefully we'll be. I told you as soon as I
changed jobs. I may be coming to
Korea. Buckle up. I'm coming to town. This was like last February.
Here it is. End of June.
The train's coming to town. But another way it worked out, so it took me 1.5 years the first time. It's going to be soon the next time. But yeah, I do actually, my job involves a career role, but I just never got to come over here before. But it's been cool. So and now we do this. We just had Ryan Cabal leave.
Yeah.
Very cool guy, good to hang out with. Good photography and Instagramming and stuff like that, Facebooking guy, really cool guy. Good guy to hang out with.
Yeah. No, and even though we haven't left the Itaewon area, it's been nice hanging out because we've had some great Mexican food, some great fried chicken here tonight.
Oh, my mind was blown by the fried chicken. Actually, honestly, in all sincerity, my mind was genuinely blown by that, and I'd heard good things about this
Korean fried chicken?
No, not the Korean fried chicken,
the Vatos.
Vatos. I'd heard good things about Vatos, but I'm not like a huge tacos. I know Americans go for the tacos thing, and I've had lots of tacos in my day, but I was impressed.
Yeah.
It was something special.
If you come to Korea and you want the authentic LA street taco type experience, Vatos is a good fusion.
And I'll tell you what, if you're in Japan, and I know as well, all my American friends are always whining and complaining, there's no proper Mexican here. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of didn't come to Mexico, did you? You don't understand. How long did it take you to realize you weren't in Mexico? But yeah, they complain a lot about it. But over here, I mean, I guess it's right beside a huge American US place, and they have good Mexican here.
Does well.
If you're missing Mexican, come to Seoul.
Well, if you're missing foreign food, for that matter, Itaewon is a foreign food mecca. So
that's
Italian,
Because the last time I was, the last time I was in Itaewon,
it was not this nice, shall we say?
I was in 2001, maybe 2000, and I was on the whiskey with some Russian traders and their Korean girlfriends and a Korean friend, and all I remember is I woke up as the plane landed in Tokyo and I had no idea how I got there. The next morning, it was the roughest night of my whole life. Was in Itaewon. It was grungy. It was, you could tell it's a place that would have regular fights. Every building, every bar would have no Korean, or they'd have no foreigners, and then the next bar would say no Koreans. Like, screw you right back. But here's like, it's so nice. I mean, this is like an upmarket neighborhood anywhere that you see anywhere in Japan, and it's different. And the food thing, I mean, again, you talk about, I'd say this is like the Roppongi of Tokyo as the context, but it's not the Roppongi of Tokyo. Roppongi is a sleazy bar district, which is what this kind of used to be. But this is a genuine, really nice going out eating.
I mean, there's a lot of nice cafes. We wanted to go to one cafe, but it closed a little bit early.
Yes,
they have great pies there. But Itaewon has really become known as the foreign food mecca of Seoul. So,
I mean, of course, I guess you have to explain this as well. To the people who are planning to come to this part of the world but are not here, I don't know in Korea, why do I want to eat foreign food? Or when I go to Japan, I'm going to have sushi every day. And it's funny, I ate more sushi when I was in New Zealand than I did when I got to Japan. And it's not that you get tired of the food or anything, but you always want to have diverse and good tasting food, and you don't naturally discriminate. And this is the thing, to find good food from any place.
Well, no, and I'll agree with that, because I eat more Mexican food here in Korea than I ever did in the American Southwest.
Mexico is like 8,000 kilometers that way. But
the best Mexican street taco stand in the universe was a 2-hour drive from my home in Arizona, yet I eat more Mexican food here.
You sold 5,000 Gaijin resident Japan tickets coming over here because I hear nothing but complaints about lack of Mexican food. But I eat Italian food like 3 days a week in Tokyo, and it's good food. It's great food. I totally recommend it. But yeah, I mean, I've had bulgogi while I've been here, and I've done that. I've checked that box off. I've had my kimchi. I was very careful not to call it Kimuchi because I would get run out of the food.
You'd be shot.
Especially if I said I like it. Wouldn't say that, but it was so I got my Korean food fix, but it's great. And it's true. It's definitely gentrified a little bit, but in the good way. And it's a totally different country. 13 years is a long time for any country, let alone a rapidly economically developing country. But when I was here 13 years ago, the roads, it's kind of weird because the roads were wide, the buildings were tall and brand new and flash, and golden and cool shapes. But the footpaths, half of them were not sealed. You'd have a dirt footpath in between these mornings. But now, I mean, and it's clean. There's rubbish everywhere before. And it's really kind of not looked after. And somewhere along the line, everywhere I've been in the last 3 or 4 days, it's been clean, no rubbish anywhere, everything well made, and it's really, really impressive. I guess I have to say, I can shoot this as a video about myself, but I have to I can't help it. Someone who lives in Japan, my impression coming to Korea and the things that I see that are different, and I guess there's a lot of people out there as well who are thinking, I want to teach English, or I want to travel, and I've heard good things about teaching in Korea, I've heard good things about opportunities in Japan. Everyone goes to Japan. Some people say Korea is interesting. What are the differences? And of course it's different for everybody. Everybody's experience is different. The differences that I noticed traveling between the two, that's the small things. So for example, it's middle of summer at the moment. In Japan, they don't really turn on the air conditioning very high in summer, and everywhere is kind of hot, and you're always kind of sweaty, and it's hard to concentrate. Here, the air conditioning is cold, and I understand it's super hot in the winter, right?
Yeah, very hot in the winter.
So they battle nature like it needs to be beaten down and forced into submission here, which I completely respect. If you want to work, I like it, my air conditioning on cold, so it works for me here, and that's something I found pleasant. We're talking a little bit before. It's funny how the foreign guy who lives here talks about how Japanese girls are so good with the makeup and looking after themselves, and I had the exact Same thing to say about Korean girls by comparison, but you do notice the girls here really take good care of themselves. They pay a lot of attention to taking care of themselves, you know. The thing which also gets me, there's hills everywhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to also take into consideration Korea is 80% mountains.
As is Japan.
Yeah,
Japan is just.
But Japan is more spread out than Korea. It's more compact.
Well, that's true as well. But yeah, I mean, the reasons that Japanese will tell you is that, you know, there's a landslide risk if there's a typhoon, there's earthquake risk, and there's all this kind of things. It's probably the earthquakes more than anything that taught Japanese that they literally will remove hills and flatten them and put suburbs over them, and it means that Tokyo is very good for cycling because, you know, there's not a lot of hills, but here where I'm staying in that Red High in Itaewon. It's on the top of a hill. And it's not just a hill, that's a serious... And in winter, everything's covered in ice and snow around here. I don't know how people walk around.
It's frightening. It's frightening. You're right on Namsan, the South Mountain of Seoul. Yeah. And when we were coming down here to this restaurant, we were literally walking down inclines that were, I would say, at least 45 degrees. Fairly close to 45 degrees.
That's pretty intense.
And we were commenting, it's like, I would not take you on this path in the wintertime because we would just like...
I don't know how cars get around here either, like honestly. It's crazy, but I guess as well, that's why everyone here looks so fit. I mean, it's another impression I got when I was a backpacker, and I was going to different neighborhoods when I was a backpacker as well, I admit to what I've been seeing, but like the US Embassy full of the guards in front, Korean, Japanese guys, they're not often physically well built. They're not physically very intimidating, generally speaking. Korean guys, and it's partly at the end of the military service, I guess.
Yeah, 2 years, mandatory.
You know, the guys who are, they look like guys you wouldn't want to pick fights with here. You know, and a lot of foreigners get in trouble thinking the same thing in Japan, and it's a mistake to think that anywhere. But guys and girls here are fit, you know, which is kind of cool, and I attribute it to the hills. That's my new explanation. I'll just explain all of Korea. It's the hills.
It's the hills.
It's the hills.
Up and down, up and down, up and down.
Like life. So, you know. Let's, by the way, just while we were drinking beer, we resolved, we're going to send letters to the embassies of Japan and Korea tomorrow. We've resolved all the territorial issues.
Absolutely.
And the namings of the ocean. We found perfect compromises that would be acceptable to everybody. And it'll be fantastic. This time next week, I think all diplomatic issues between the countries should be resolved.
I think so. I think so.
I'm looking forward to that.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. Very simple. They should just let two bald white guys solve all their problems for them. Honestly, it'll just be much easier than all the aggravation.
Why not? Why not? Things would go so much easier.
Yeah. But, and by the way, some people were concerned about, I mean, actually, it's kind of interesting. People don't realize there's only like one candle in this room at the moment. It's the reflection from a head lights up the entire room. It's like we have the double spotlights. It really works well, which is excellent for the shooting. So yeah, I don't know. So when are we going to get you in Japan?
Maybe for the fall gathering.
Fall gathering, which September, mid-September. Planning is in the works, and probably we have, of course. I mean, I organise them. We have awesome gatherings every year in fall. But the one the year before last, in the sports cafe with the big TV screens and YouTube videos playing everywhere. That was an awesome party, and that's the venue I'm looking to hook up in mid-September. Details to come, but set it aside if you can come to Japan mid-September and come to this gathering, and I will get details out in the next couple of weeks. Victor's asking me to do it, I'll get it done. But it'd be great if we could get you over
I will
try. Do the reverse cultural interpretation video.
Yeah.
But great place here. Really lovely. Really, it's fascinating for me, I guess. I'm guilty, as anyone is. You can only contextualize against what you know. And there's a tendency, I think, for foreigners to, and I will get angrier than anybody when someone says, Korea and Japan, aren't they the same thing? And right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I live in Japan, I tend to presume by all the faults that, I know some things about Korean culture and Korean people, but some things you assume similarity, and you try to work on the basis of difference. But I come over here and I find things are much, much more different than I was expecting them to be before I came over, which is, I love that. You know, it's like a real, it's a kick. It's something I want to come and understand and experience more. So I think it's real refreshing to go either way. Actually, you know, if you come to Korea, go and check out Japan. And if you're in Japan, the weekend trips to Korea, they're cheaper than going from Tokyo to Osaka. You can come to Korea for a weekend and stay in a hotel. And by airplane, it's 2 hours by airplane. It's 3 hours by bullet train to Osaka. And the ticket costs more for the bullet train. So Seoul, you know, Korea isn't as far as it seems. And it's, you know, cheap, good shopping, great food, really fun people. Totally different atmosphere to Tokyo. And it rocks. I'm really impressed. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at doing a trip to Fukuoka.
Oh, yeah.
And for us to bullet train it down to Busan and then to ferry it over to Fukuoka was cheaper than even flying over.
In 2001, that was my plan. I actually have a homestay family in Fukuoka, and I went down to Fukuoka to see them, and then I was going to catch the ferry to Busan and catch the train to Seoul. But a typhoon came right when my ferry was going to go across, and my ferry was cancelled, so I bought an air ticket and flew instead. But that was the ferry, and the ferry is not from Fukuoka to Busan. Is like they've got these high-speed ferries.
Yeah, it's like 2.5, 3 hours tops.
It's not a far trip by ferry, so. And that is a trip I do want to do one day as well. That'd be a cool way to do that trip. And Fukuoka is great as well, by the way. Fukuoka is like one of my favorite cities in Japan. So, yeah, you know, people talk about, I think in Japan they talk about the neighbors that are close together but far apart. Japanese always like to say, you know, Koreans say about each other. And it's true, I always felt like that I should have come here so many times by now and I haven't. But yeah, you know, I want to come back more. It's like, it's a cool place. So, and excellent people here, Koreans and, you know, YouTube friends as well. It's cool to be able to come and hook up and talk like this. So, I don't know, very nice meeting you.
Very nice meeting you for the first time.
Yeah, well, it doesn't feel like the first time.
No, it doesn't feel like the first time, and it certainly won't be the last time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Korea rocks, come and check it out.
Japan rocks.
I hope you don't get into trouble for that.
No, I mean, Japan is a cool country. There's a lot of culture and significant things that came out of there. I mean, you can't argue that. I mean, it's a fascinating country.
I'm so scared of saying anything that So there is a reputation. Again, there's both being objective foreigners in our respective countries. I don't know. Okay, well, let's get into this. Maybe this is probably a cut of the video at this point. So this is the after. This is the after hours video.
Cheers.
Oh, I'm gonna need some of this. Okay. Stereotypes. Let's just get straight into it. Living in Japan. When I look at media talking about in Japan about Korean people, and you know, it's almost always they're angry or they're acting kind of crazy, protesting against Japan about something that doesn't seem all that important. Well, you know, and this is part of the problem. Of course, that's why they're angry, because the Japanese people, you know, it's a couple of rocks, or you know, it happened during the war, or you know, it's like that was like 100 years ago. What do you care? Well, you care about it, obviously.
Okay, so is it about Koreans or Korean government?
Well, this is the thing, but this isn't it. So, I guess the issue is that when you have 30-second news stories about, you know, very angry-looking protesters in front of the embassy burning flags and stamping on things and chopping off fingers and stuff, and this is the thing, people in Japan and people like me in Japan are like, oh, these people are crazy.
Okay, the people chopping off fingers, even people in Korea think that those people are crazy.
And you know, but the problem is, and I'm sure this goes both ways, the problem is that those are the people who take up the airtime and represent the image of Korea. Mosquito. It's that.
It's over there now.
It's over there now, but yeah. But the problem is, I think this is the problem in both directions, that the perception is shaped by a very loud and very non-representative minority in both directions. Of course, I know that I've heard that the recent protests in Okuba, and they're not protests, they're racist marches. I don't have trouble with this, but you know, the Zaitokai in Okuba is picking a lot of attention in Korea. And Japanese just kind of think if you ignore them, they'll go away. Just don't give them the attention that they want. But the problem is that those people are representing the entire nation of Japan and Korea right now. and vice versa. These crazy protesters, they represent all of Korea to Japan, and it makes it look like there are these insurmountable, differences in boundaries between the countries, which the media kind of plays up as well.
I would agree with that as well. I mean, Victor and I have spoken about this many times, and the conversation I always have with Victor is that I have not met a single Korean who has ever said anything really racist or derogatory against Japanese people. Against the Japanese government, yes.
Yeah.
What I would say are a lot of complaints about whatever the relationship between two nations are, but not against the people. And I think that is also distorted in a lot of media. It's like, okay, this is what Koreans say about Japan.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, about the government of Japan, not necessarily the people.
Okay, well, but there's another thing with the culture here, which a lot of foreigners in Japan talk about when they talk about where they feel more comfortable. And one of the big differences that you hear about between the two cultures that I've certainly encountered here with Korean people is that Japanese culture is it's a culture of discretion. Not always, of course, there's exceptions. You can never talk about 120 million people as one thing. But there's a general culture of this idea that you, with many exceptions in certain subjects like body weight or certain topics, there's this idea that you hold in your honest feelings about certain things out of consideration for the feelings of the other person. Whereas there's a culture I've encountered myself of confrontational honesty.
Yes, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
And I know a lot of foreigners who respect that and in fact feel much more comfortable in Korea because of that. They're different. I can see how different people would take positive and negative views of those differences.
Well, I would agree with that too. And, before we shot this, we were talking about perceptions of being minorities in different cultures. And one of the things that I've always said about Korea specifically is, it's a largely homogeneous society. So when you look at interracial situations and race relations, a lot of people get upset here in Korea about the status of foreigners or the way people are treated here in Korea. And I always say, well, those are some legitimate gripes, but also you have to realize the exposure of foreign elements in a homogeneous society. So if you look at the United States in the 1940s, 1950s, what you see now really parallels that.
And with saying that Korea right now in race relations is like America in the 1940s, 50s, that would offend a lot of Japanese people if I said that about Japan, even though I think you can say that with some legitimate basis. You think that statement would pass to Koreans? Would they accept that?
It's not that I don't think they would understand it enough to understand it, because here in Korea there has still have been textbooks that paint Africans as living in huts, and I've seen firsthand where a Korean student meets a black person for the very first time and doesn't understand why their skin is that way. And it's because they don't have the exposure to a multiracial society. And it only comes with interaction and development. And you look at the United States, how long it's taken even to get where it is right now, and Korea only in a short 60 years.
Loco in Yokohama?
Yes.
He wrote a fantastic book a while ago, which I love, and he's a really interesting guy. And he blogs. To tell the truth, I didn't like his blog so much, and I think he really crunched down and really did his book really well. He comes with this issue obviously in Japan. And there are a lot of the comments, the debates, which he engages in directly as well underneath his own videos. It's this whole thing about what's the attitude that you're bringing to this country. Are you trying to understand or not? Like, some people are critical of him. Well, there's the two perspectives. There's the Well, just because they're English, that doesn't make it okay that they don't have to learn to be considerate towards other people. And the other view is that, no, we're the guests, we should be considerate of them and not take anything, at least not the way that it's unintended. I mean, anything maliciously intended, sure, but do your best to engage and educate where you encounter it other ways, which is more the attitude that I take. But there again, there's also so in Japan, in spite of the intense, horrible suffering suffered by white people all over Japan, some people feel like they're I know people who literally think that white people in Japan are like black people in South Africa. I've heard people actually use that kind of comparison, and I'm like, what are you smoking? Holy crap. White people everywhere, especially where they are minorities, are usually privileged minorities in most parts of the world. And certainly in Japan, if we are discriminated against in Japan, it's usually favorable employment. It's usually opportunities that Koreans never get or Japanese never get that they give to us. I got more DJing gigs. I suck as a DJ. I got to play in nightclubs because it was a novelty to have me there. And I'm not going to turn it down out of tokenism. I mean, it was great. It got me, doors open for me. So I always, and there are groupies or people who are kind of in awe of white people. They watch movies or whatever. They think that. And it's kind of weird, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's kind of like, for me, Japan is an example of a country that wasn't colonized and managed to succeed without, they kind of proved the case, in some ways, they proved the case against colonialism. That here's a country which, without being dominated by people that look like me, managed to become the second biggest, recently now the third biggest economy in the world. But at the same time, I said this to Bayek, and he kind of said, yeah, that was an interesting thing with June, this part of the world, was the fact that this was a non-colonized, this was a free, they held out and they survived. But he said, but then he came in and he realized it's so disappointing that in spite of having held out against colonialism for all those years, he comes and he finds out that Japanese buy into a lot of, not only the colonialism ideas, but including the idea of whites being on the top of the chain, like that. The colonialism, it wasn't even imposed on them, and they buy into some of the propaganda of the colonialism without being colonized. And it's kind of like, and including attitudes towards black people. Yeah. And that is like, so it's kind of really disappointing for him as well, without wanting to speak for him, of course. But it's a really interesting statement, I thought. As a white man in Korea with a very good-looking hairstyle.
No, I mean, well, no, I would say that as well. And one of the biggest gripes I have here revolves around English.
Yeah.
And
the freelancing guy.
Well, no. I don't have a problem with that because as someone who learns other languages, when I travel abroad, I'm always apt to try whatever I'm doing. No, but like here in Korea, if you want to teach English on a teaching visa, you have to be from one of the 7 quote-unquote native-speaking languages, countries of the world.
You have to, the country, you can be a native speaker, but you have to be from, what are the countries?
United States, Canada, England, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, I think that's all of them.
Okay.
So you can't teach English in Korea unless you're from one of those passport holders. However, most of the Korean English speakers who are teaching English do not have the qualifications in terms of pronunciation or familiar with grammar that I would want for an English teacher. And same goes for a lot of native speakers who come here and teach because the requirement is you're from that country and you have a bachelor's degree. There's no teaching requirement for it. But what really bugs me about this is that the Korean government discriminates against other countries who may not be native speakers but have English as a major speaking component of that language and are fluent speakers.
Take Jamaica, for example. I could pick a country.
Jamaica, India, Philippines, all. And for Korea, a lot of families will take their students, send to the Philippines to learn English, but Filipinos who may have masters in teaching English as a second language can never get a job here teaching English.
Yeah, I sometimes get questions that I don't know about. And don't ask me your English teaching questions because I don't know. But I get questions sometimes like, I'm Swedish. Do you think I could get a job teaching English? And I have no idea. There is no nationality restrictions like that, certainly. But if you wanted a reference, I'd happily vouch that most Swedish people I've met seem to speak better English than most English people I know. That's not an exaggeration even. I mean, they generally actually probably speak better English than a lot of English people. So that's kind of okay. That's kind of, but this is the thing as well, and this happens in Japan. Again, you look like an English speaker. They get the size of disappointment at getting the Asian American or the Asian New Zealand teacher who, you don't look like an American. And they literally say that. And it's like, and this is the thing as well. Having Nikkei friends, or friends who racially are the same, look Japanese or are Japanese, but they're just as English speaking and just as culturally whatever as I am. But there's this kind of ideal of what their English teacher they want to have look like. And it's the same with the weddings. In Japan, all of these English teachers who get money on the weekend wearing priest robes and doing these ceremonies in fake churches pretending to be priests because a wedding is supposed to have a foreign priest and not only a foreign priest has to kind of speak in broken Japanese. And I know friends as well who can speak fluent Japanese, but Watashi tachi wa kokomade kimashi.
Oh my gosh.
They actually deliberately speak the broken priest English that a real immigrant priest would say at a wedding. People pay premium money for it. It's good money if you're comfortable with the sacrilegious element.
That's just wrong. That's just wrong on so many levels.
I went to a friend's wedding. I went to one of these things. And I went to church for like 12 years, and Church of England, so we're not militant about anything. Honestly, a church founded by Henry VIII, how moral can you be? And so, I'm a pretty morally flexible, what do you call it, recalcitrant, Christian or whatever. It wasn't, been since I was 12 years old, but so I don't identify and get offended by blasphemy easily. But when I was in this chapel, this fake chapel, this karaoke pub, and I'm looking at them, I'm setting the aisles, and like the church aisles and the seats. I'm this is nostalgic for me. They come to the aisle, and then all of a sudden I see on the cross, on the wall in front of the church, there's mounted video cameras on each one of the arms of the cross. And I was thinking, no, that just doesn't feel right. And then I'm thinking, I was kind of flabbergasted by it. And then I thought to myself, well, at least you get excellent footage from that position.
Yeah.
You get coverage of a wedding that you never get that coverage from a wedding in America. You get lynched, or And I told my friend later, so did you get the video from the cameras that were hanging off the cross? I was, oh no, that cost extra. I couldn't afford it.
Oh my God.
But it's good. I tell people this. Be comfortable with your looking different. It's just perks. It's mostly perks. It's very seldom anything else, and everything is in context. And it doesn't mean that you have to tolerate bad stuff necessarily.
No.
There's stuff, of course, and no one has to ever tolerate. But at the same time, you shouldn't presume that everything is somehow a negative slight that you'll interpret it that way.
Well, yeah. I've met a number of people who have thought people were being rude or insensitive, but it wasn't the case. It's just because Seoul is a population of 25 million people, and that's just the way things are in a crowded place.
Well, Tokyo is a crowded place, and people behave. There's a culture as well. There's a culture, and the Korean directness culture, I've struggled with myself at times, and and frankly, saying some pretty shocking things sometimes. And again, the thing is, and I know that these people, they joke about death sometimes. They joke about things like, oh my God, did you just say that as a joke? And they're all laughing. And you can kind of tell it's not serious, but it's like, whoa, just give me a second, okay? I'm okay now. But I remember in New Zealand having a Japanese girlfriend, having Korean friends. I'd say, my Korean friends, so is she Japanese? Yeah. Oh, I hate Japanese.
Okay.
Whoa. That I've encountered very rarely and not in Korea. Never encountered it in Korea. In fact, actually, I'll tell you what else was really cool about coming here. when I was a backpacker 10 years ago, I tried English in the markets, go to Namdaemun, Tongdaemun, and the markets, not as much English as I expected because it's famous for the bases here. Oh, okay. 日本語話せますか? And not only do they, especially old ladies, not only do they all speak Japanese, but they love you for being a European looking person who they think is kind of somehow physiologically impossible. So do they have this ever since Japan, that they think there's some sort of brain genetic thing that makes it impossible for Westerners to ever fully be able to comprehend their language? Or
I get that, but I get that throughout Asia because I've traveled in the Philippines, I've traveled in Indonesia.
It's the same in those?
And a lot of times people are very shocked that I would take the time to learn their language.
Okay.
Where, to me, it's like I'm going to be traveling for an extended period of time in your country. It makes sense to me to be able to speak a little bit of what it is so I can get what I need.
And actually as well, the positive reaction that you get from showing that attitude of interest and that little bit of that little step of respect that you show by learning that, that changes the way that everyone looks at you and deals with you actually.
Yeah, I mean, because like when I travel to Indonesia or the Philippines, and those are cultures that bartering and haggling are very much part of the business structure. And for me to be able to communicate in native numbers makes me able to get a better deal.
Yeah.
Which benefits me tremendously.
There is a trap with that as well. There is the first world tourist of the third world country. You can get into the haggling thing too much and forget that sometimes you're arguing 50 cents with a...
Well, no, I mean...
with a
that I never get into.
Really? I'm unconscious. I've done that in Romania, so at least it wasn't a racial thing. But it was like... I remember I was getting into an argument with a street vendor in Romania in 1995 when $1 was worth 30,000 Romanian lei in those days. And I gave them like literally $60 at the airport. And they gave me this, this much money. I said, can I have larger denominations, please? This is the largest denomination. And I went there, it was like, bread cost like 0.3 cents. And so I'm in a market like that. I think over the week being there and learning Romanian and getting into the haggling thing. And one day I realized I was haggling with someone aggressively over like a 2-cent discount.
I need my 2 cents!
And you just have to forget, you have to remember context sometimes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it is, but it's also part of the fun and it's part of the engagement. But, so, I mean, people ask me, and I can never give them a straight answer. You couldn't speak Korean before you came here, or could you?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so you came here without any Korean. So how long do you think it took you to be kind of survivable, functional on your own in Korea?
It took me about, I would say, a week to learn the alphabet, to where I was comfortable in reading anything at any time. And then maybe 2 or 3 months of studying maybe an hour a day before I was travel savvy.
So travel savvy, about 2 or 3 months of consciously studying.
Of consciously studying.
Yeah. Age makes a big difference with this as well, actually. So how old were you when you first came?
I was 37.
Okay, so that's quite late in the piece as well. A 21-year-old coming here for 3 months does not have to study for an hour every day to be 10 times more travel savvy than a 37-year-old who studies an hour every day. And that's it's just a sad thing of life. You realize through language more than any other thing, how much of more of a sponge and how much less of a sponge your brain becomes over time, especially for languages. But okay, but that's the thing though. I mean, that's really, you don't really get any less flexible than in your 30s. That's where you kind of level out. So that's really kind of a worst case, least effort kind of thing. So 3 months you can, and now you're pretty comfortable. You don't get into trouble. You have situations still that you have trouble.
No, I mean, one of the things I wish I was better at is speaking Korean, but at the same time, because the work I do, I
expect you to speak English.
I speak English, but I just work so much that I don't have the study time available to me.
Right.
So once I get to a level that I can travel anywhere in Korea,
Yeah.
I can communicate on a functional level for any of my needs,
Yeah.
for either food, accommodation, emergency, directions, accommodations, whatever. I have that comfort level.
Yeah.
So the nuances of interpersonal communication just haven't filtered into my desire to learn more.
Well, environment is a big part of it. Your job, and whether you have to speak it in a job, and obviously you're married to a non-Korean, so that's
Right.
another thing. Obviously dating / marrying / that's another.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's just another form of immersion. Well, depending on, and again, I know this is also a point of tension with some couples. Sometimes the Asian fellow and the Japanese or the Korean lady, she wants to learn English as aggressively as I want to learn Japanese or Korean, and it can be a point for some people. But generally speaking, I think especially if you're living in the country and you're married to a local, the immersion or dating,
Absolutely.
that speeds it up as well.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that.
Do they have this thing in Japanese? There is one big pitfall to learning Japanese through dating in Japan, that girls speak different grammar, actually, even to guys. So if you pick up all of your Japanese from a girl that you're dating, you can get good Japanese in no time. You'll sound like a guy
girl?
talking girl's language, if you want to sing that way. Is there an equivalent to that here?
I wouldn't say there's a grammar equivalent to it, but here in Korea we have what's called aegyo, which is like the baby talk, girl talk type of thing.
Okay, yeah.
And girls will talk that kind of language with their boyfriends, which I find extremely annoying. I can't say I've ever known a gentleman to pick that up.
Yeah, that's a good sign. So guys, no ego, it's not cool.
No.
Okay, that's which believe me, I have seen, and honestly, and not just the grammar, the effeminate body language, and if that's your bag, that's totally cool. There's nothing there, but I've seen guys who have, because it creates an impression that you learned your Japanese from going to gay bars rather than from going out with lots of girls. Sometimes it's the most rampantly heterosexual men will come across as like they're effeminate. Come the other way, as they come across speaking super effeminate. And it's funny as well. So it's a phenomenon that happens with a lot of foreigners that party in Roppongi every week in Tokyo.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's something to be careful of, but the girlfriend thing is still a very good method. Dating a tomboy is a very good way around it. Actually, I dated a tomboy. That was a good solution. That worked for me because I could copy her, and she would fix me if I ever said anything that sounded wussy. And often what I say is wussy, even in English. So,
Well, no, and I think you're right on. I mean, if you're going to a foreign country, one of the fastest ways to really immerse yourself in the language is when you're dating or serious, because you have, I think, a more intrinsic motivation to learn the language. Because, I mean, so my wife is Filipina, and I'm more in tune to learn Tagalog than
Tagalog. Beta Max MC emphasized once the difference between the wannabes and the reals is whether they say Tagalog or
Tagalog.
Yeah. So, so you've been here what? You were saying before, like
almost 5 years.
5 years. But that is, I think, in any country, there's a bit of a threshold within the 3 to 5 year thing that you go from being you become probably seen as being pretty well established.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about this before. A lot of people who come to Japan or Korea, typically 1-2 years, they want to experience the different culture and then move on. I mean, those that stay longer typically have different career opportunities and are more invested in the culture and in the history of the nation that they move to, and want to pursue that as a passion.
Yeah.
So they're able to marry their love of the history of the culture and their career objectives.
I mean, and we were talking about this before as well. So the show is, and this is another thing. If you're a foreigner, there's fantastic social life in the foreign circles here as well as in Tokyo. But you always have to be aware that when you put up all of your social support networks with foreigners, you know, there's probably there seems to be a 1 year and a 3 year threshold in Japan for when people seem to leave.
It's right around, I would say, I'd say pretty close. I mean, because usually people will stay for 1 year. 2 is when most people leave. 3 is probably when if you stay beyond 3, then you move into that. Sorry, you get it?
Got it.
You move into that quote unquote lifer category.
And that's the category that the students are probably moving into, although obviously you've got a different family situation from a lot of the lifers that are around as well. But
yeah, I mean,
but you've seen a lot of foreigners come and go. That's another.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that makes it very difficult, is because you have the opportunity to develop rich friendships.
Yeah.
And then, okay, 2 years and they're ready to go home.
Yeah. And that's a really big issue for a lot of long-termers and even short-termers. Actually, you know, suddenly one day after 3 years, when you had never had even thought about leaving, you realize one day all of your friends, you know, you go to the last farewell of your last close friend. And you don't want to go through all the trouble of making friends again.
Yeah, you know, it's tough because, you know, I live in a city developing lots of English academies and people coming in, people coming out. And I've met people in my 4 years of being there that have come and gone, and it's always tough. It's, you know, who's going away party am I going to next?
A lot of going away parties.
Whose welcoming party am I coming to next?
Yeah. And I must admit, so as people who know me know, I avoided that issue by avoiding all contact with other foreigners, which is a weird thing, but it works for me because I mean I have a good network of, which I'm not that good at staying in touch with, I admit, but I have a good network of Japanese friends that I establish and that I deliberately try to establish first. But that's not common. But it's a really big challenge, and it's a really big barrier to stay in a country like Korea.
Well, no, and Joe and I are like that as well. It's like if you look at our closer friends,
yeah,
it's Korean nationals who we know aren't going to leave in a year.
But it makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And this is the thing, you can focus, you can have you can save lots of money, you can have lots of partying, you can have a really good time, good memories. But it's all time limited if you don't make an effort to have some native friends who are here. And I think it's part of the experience as well. I mean, it's a lot of people live in Tokyo, I'm sure a lot of people live in Korea, but they're not really ever properly living. And then, you know, all their friends that they hang out with, everything they kind of do. I don't know, for me it always feels like you come all this way, you know, you might as well try a little bit too. But again, that's up to each person. But the payoffs and the benefits, it's harder if you try to go native, it's hard, and there's a lot of, that's a hard route on its own. Here's the question. I mean, a lot of people ask me, and with Japan, there's always this perception. As a foreigner, can you ever truly be accepted by Japanese? And it's kind of a racial stereotype of Japanese that they're a closed, isolationist culture. And I don't think it's that true. Like the stereotypes kind of go, but I get the question a lot. What about Korea?
See, I get the question a lot too, and a lot of people feel the same way. But then, when I make my videos about Korean history and culture, you know, the comments I get are, you know more about Korean history and Korean culture than I do, and these are coming from Koreans who have lived through all their lives. And I have always been welcomed in the homes, been welcomed in the businesses, as someone who is foreign, but who is knowledgeable of Korean society and culture. So I've never felt excluded. And to give you, you know, and I've spoken about this many years ago, but I've even been to a mafia funeral here in Korea.
Were they all like crying like babies?
No, they were not. It was a very surreal experience that I was not prepared for. But, I mean, that's not something that you would typically involve in. So,
my boss was involved in a Korean funeral a year ago. and this was of a worker on the team, and she'd say that's not an experience. I mean, again, you talk about the cultural differences between Japan and Korea, like the classic hallmark differences. Japanese funerals are very stoic. You know, nobody shows any emotion. Very solid, very quiet, very, you know, everyone stiff upper lip. And I don't know, you see on TV and there's an image of Korean funerals.
Well, yeah, and the way it's been explained to me and being able to visualize it and being here is that the more pronounced you are means that the more you feel it, the more you embrace that emotion. So like when Kim Jong-il died, you had the people in North Korea just falling over, wailing. It was
they're not afraid of being shot for not being said enough?
Well, part of it was propaganda, but part of it was also is that, you know, in their society they want to appear as if they're very emotional about him dying, so they want to go over the board. And I see that a lot in terms of people being upset. So I've been walking down the street.
South Korea as well.
In South Korea. So like, I've been walking down the street and something very minor happens.
Yeah.
But to show that you're very upset about it, you scream at the top of your lungs, whereas you and I would just say, oh, come on. You know, and just have a normal conversation.
So people who scream at the top of their lungs?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I was waiting for you in the lobby.
Someone was screaming in the lobby.
Someone was.
No way.
Oh, yes.
No way.
Oh, yes. Using broken Korean and broken English, it was enough for, you know, all of us. There was another foreigner he was French. He was sitting next to me.
Well, of course they scream. I mean,
No. He was not. It was a Korean one. He was French. He was sitting over. He was FaceTiming with his family back in France. He got up out of his seat because we all had to go look and see what the hell was going on. And whatever this elderly Korean woman was upset about, really upset her because it was enough to bring a lot of the lobby staff of the Grand Hyatt out.
Get that lady up. Wow.
Oh, okay. So
I gotta sit in the lobby
for your reference. Here's
I'm sorry I kept you waiting so long, but it sounds like it was
No,
interesting.
it was great. So here's the doors coming in.
Yeah.
Over here. So I was sitting over here. It was way over here.
Yeah.
And it sounded like she was sitting next to me. That's how loud she was.
So it sounds like she's being murdered or something. She's screaming.
She was screaming. Oh yes, absolutely. Top of her lungs. It's about conveying how serious you are about the emotion. That's the way it's been explained to me.
No emotion. There's no emotion that can't be expressed through a good firm handshake. That's my philosophy on emotion. Wow. See, okay. So you're living for a long time in a culture of this exuberant sharing of emotion. Does that rub off on you?
No.
You don't scream.
No.
See, in Japan, you think they're asking for ice cream. You have to be careful. You have to check if that's what they're saying. Ice cream. Wow. So, okay, and it's true that even within Japan, there's different culture in different parts of Japan where Osaka culture is very much more direct. They're very much more physical. Like they'll touch you more. They'll play slap on the head. So okay, never slap. You watch you watch Japanese comedy videos where the comedians slap each other on the heads. And in Osaka that happens. Never touch anyone on the head in Tokyo. Or don't. Never, you silly bullpups. You know, like, they'll do that in Osaka, and everyone will laugh, and everyone goes along with it. In Tokyo, oh my god, I'm never talking to you again. You also get regional, I'm sure, local regional cultural things as well. Yeah, for me as well, I find the difference, the marked difference. I mean, you have, for me in some ways, like, Japanese are at times like Finnish people, Norwegian, there's a stoicism culture. And it's like they've got southern Italy right beside it sometimes. The people who show. But this is cool, this is it. It's a 2-hour ride apart by ferry or by airplane. And they're both fascinating, close but really different cultures. And it shows there's so much to learn in the world, I think. Even for guys like us. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. Let's talk to all like great guy and fascinating. Go and watch all his videos and podcasts and TV shows and government sponsored programs.
Thank you, sir. Very
Superstar. So but he's a great guy actually, and very good looking. It has to be said.
Well,
it's like my Koreans women.
You got the winning hairstyle. Come on now.
He actually walked 50% faster than anybody else, just because we have the superior aerodynamic shape.
It's all about aerodynamics.
I tell you, I'm the first person in Australia. Everybody, get your umbrellas out. The detector has says there's nothing but advantages. Showers are like 30% faster. I use less water. It's ecological, to be friendly.
Don't have to worry about shampoo.
Shampoo? What's shampoo? I used to pay $50 for haircuts when I had hair.
Oh yeah.
The money of the water, the trees that have up and fell.
My students always ask me, how long does it take you to dry your hair? Like that.
Yeah. So anyway, good talking to you all. That's QA Ranger, Q Ranger.
Eco Simon! Peace!
55 minutes. It's practically an Oyajis episode. Who's going to watch 55 minutes?